Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julio Hewitt. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I've been asked to give a presentation on the pursuit of employment. So, one of the key aspects of a man's responsibility is to be able to provide for his family. And the initial way that he can do that is through gainful employment. So, what I'm going to do is share some information in that respect. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself, and I hope that you find the information valuable. So, hopefully, you can see the screen that I have here. Let's see if I can get an acknowledgement that the screen is viewable. All right. So, the pursuit of employment. As I mentioned, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. So, my name is Julio Hewitt. Thank you. And I was born and raised in New York City years and years ago. I moved to Delaware in 1993. I have 28 years as an IT professional, the last 11 years as a hiring manager. My family dynamics, I'm married to Tony Hewitt, my beautiful wife. 10 years we've celebrated this year. We have four children. I have a brother who lives out in St. Louis, Missouri, who's a chiropractor. My mother is from Cartagena, Colombia, and my father is from Colón, Panama, which is where I get my first name being Spanish. My grandfather is from the Christchurch area of Barbados, and he worked on the Panama Canal. That's how he supported his family when he moved from Barbados over to Panama. My hobbies, I love chess, cooking, photography, motorcycle racing, and I recently am the owner and founder of Sheepdog Vigilance, which is a firearm educational company. So I break down job interviewing in three specific areas. There's the preparation, there's the execution, and then there's the follow-up. So we'll go through the preparation, we'll talk about the execution, and then we'll wrap it up with what you should do on a follow-up. So the first thing that you should have is a professional resume. You should have no grammatical or typographical errors in your resume. So once you put it together, have someone review your resume. I always tell people that your resume is what gets you the interview. Your interviewing skills is what gets you the job. So you start off with a professional resume so that you can get to the interview table. Be sure that you put only just your name, your phone number, and your email address. There's no need really any longer to put your actual living or mailing address. Start off with a summary of your qualifications and tailor it specific to the job that you're applying for. Ensure that your email address is not one you use personally, that does not look professional. You know, the sexy one at yahoo.com certainly would not be professional. So put a good professional resume together, have someone review it, ensure that the information is accurate, is detailed sufficiently, but not overly detailed. Ideally, you don't want more than 2 pages for your resume. The next step in your preparation is researching the company that you're going to be applying for. So You should really understand the company that you're applying for, the business that they're in, specifically the position that you're applying for. Understand key information about the company. So, what does the organization do? What are its missions, goals, and values? Look and see if they've been highlighted in news recently, whether it's good or bad. Try to determine what the culture is like. Maybe speak to other people from that company. See what the pros and cons are of being employed by that company. And then specifically try to find out who you may be interviewing with. See if you can gather some information around that individual. But it's a two-way street, right? You want to make sure that the company that you're going to be working for is a good fit for you, just as they're looking for you to be a good fit for them. Leverage the details in the job description. So go over that line by line, pull out the information on the qualifications that they're looking for. It's very important. They've detailed it for a specific reason. Ideally, they're looking for someone who meets all the qualifications. If you don't meet all of the qualifications, that's fine. Try to speak to most of those qualifications that you can, using examples from your past work. The next thing that you want to do is to practice interviewing. So come up with some interviewing questions that you expect them to ask you. There are some common questions that people typically ask. Certainly, what is your background? What are some of the things that you've done in the past? But then they may ask you to explain different scenarios that you have had to handle. How did you manage it? What was the result? What did you learn from it? So be prepared for those questions. On the internet, there's lots of websites that can detail all of the questions or many questions that an employer will typically ask. Once you've done that, the next thing to do is to get a family member or a friend and set up a mock interview. So you're sort of walking through the process so that you become comfortable speaking to your background, speaking to your character, speaking to your experience, and speaking to the value that you would bring to that company. So get somebody to sit down. Either they can come up with the questions themselves, or you can give them some of the questions that you've researched and documented. This allows you to speak to these, get comfortable in how you're responding to questions. You would be able to fine tune what your responses are. Maybe you start to stutter, stumble. Now's the time to fix that before the actual interview. What I suggest people to do is to use the STAR methodology when being asked a question. So this should be part of your review and your mock process. So the STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So many times you're asked about your specific skills, and you want to be clear and concise when you give your response to the interviewer. You want to give them some background on the situation, tell them the actions, this task that you were responsible for, followed by the actions that you actually took and what were the results. And don't be afraid to say that the action you took was not the wrong one. But if you did choose a wrong action, go into detail about how you've learned from that situation and what you would do differently. So you can always use a bad outcome to help guide you in the future and allow them to understand how you've learned from it. I always suggest for people to have references on a separate paper already prepared, professional references. So you want that with your name and your contact information, and then the different references who you've already spoken to and received some sort of agreement that they may be getting a call from a potential employer, and what that particular position is that they may be required to speak to. So prepare that ahead of time. Usually in the resume, I tell people to have, that references are available upon request, but if they do request it, have your references available. Again, professional references, not family members, not friends. You're looking for managers that you've worked for, owners of companies, um, individuals that you volunteered for their organization. Those would be examples of professional references. Also, give situational work examples. Here we have a gentleman who was preparing food uh, for Thanksgiving. So, if that's what you've done, you know, provide some information around what you've done, why you've chosen to do that, how you got involved. Uh, it could be volunteer work, it could be actual work that you've done in your past jobs, clubs that you're associated with, fraternities as well. One of the key things I think people forget to do in the interview process is prepare questions for the interviewer. You should be interviewing the interviewer as they are interviewing you. Again, you want to ensure that the company that you're applying to is a good fit for you. So you should have some good questions available so that you can understand the culture, the dynamics of the group that you may be joining, the direction that they're heading in. Is this a new position? Am I backfilling a position for someone else who left? Maybe they left because the dynamics of the team weren't good. Was there an employee survey that was done? What were some of the top takeaways from that management's going to be focused on? So here are some examples I have listed here, where you can ask questions of your potential employer and even potential manager. So now that we have gotten down to preparing for the actual interview day, most importantly is your ability to dress for success. You have to present yourself in a professional manner, understand whether it should be a suit. Maybe it's a more casual environment. Maybe it's just a shirt and jacket, no tie is needed. Maybe it's just sort of a collared shirt with no jacket. Whatever it may be, try to understand what the culture is, and dress appropriately. Now, we typically send our resume ahead of time. We expect the recruiter of the company to share that resume with all of the resources that are going to be participating in the interviewing process. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. You should be prepared with a number of copies of your resume that you can provide to the interviewer in the event that either they didn't have it prior, or the person that was going to interview you is not there that day because they're sick, and someone else is filling in for them and they don't have a copy of your resume. Give them a few minutes to take a look at it, and certainly begin your discussion in highlighting the information that is appropriate for the position you're applying for. Take a pen with you so that you can take notes, and obviously note paper as well, a notebook, a pad, something that looks professional, sort of a binder that you can take with you. You want to capture people's names as you meet them, and we'll talk about what you do with that in the follow-up. Now we get to the execution. You've done all your preparation. Arriving early is important. There's nothing worse than arriving late to your interview. It doesn't give a very good impression if you're late. And by arriving early, it gives you a few minutes to be able to sit down, see how people interact, what the dynamics are in the office. Always remember that first impressions are lasting. So you're there to make a great first impression. You only have a limited time. That could just be half hour, an hour. Maybe you're seeing a panel of people, so it's shorter, or maybe you're seeing people back to back. So be prepared. Maybe bring a bottle of water, something to read if they have you sitting to the side waiting on someone um, to talk to you. Um, as time goes on. Um, Make sure that you're well dressed, your shoes are shined, your clothing is clean, it's pressed, a good shirt, no wrinkles in your shirt and your ties. Um, Give confident body language, and a smile carries a lot of weight as you go through the process. Treat everyone with respect. Again, someone may have been called at the last minute. They may come to you with a slight attitude because they've got work to do and then they've been called to come in and interview you. Understand that. Still give that person as much respect as you would expect them to give you, even if they don't. So, respect is a two-way street. Treat everyone nicely. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Uh, you want to be able to give the best impression, and that's from the minute you step out of your vehicle or get off the bus until you are leaving that building. That's the attitude that you want to take. So, good manners sort of goes along with that. Your good manners and body language. Very important that you show good body language. You're not crossing your arms. You want to be open, sitting up straight in your chair that you're interviewing in. Be attentive. Attentive listener is what you want to be, and respond to the questions that are asked. When you meet someone, you give them a good, firm handshake. Don't, certainly don't destroy their hand, but give them a good, firm handshake, looking them in the eye as you speak to them. In the past, I've had some issues with that. I tend to look away as I'm responding to someone. So, something that I've had to work on. So, be cognizant of that. Think about it. Make those changes if it's necessary. Those types of actions should be caught in your mock interview, right? That's the type of feedback you would expect the person that you're engaging in a mock interview to give you. Are you looking at them? Are you clear? Are you concise? Authenticity and positivity, right? So you want to be as authentic as you can. You want to be able to share any challenging issues that you've had, but you want to get across that you're a trustworthy person. You have a high level of integrity. You're self-aware. You're supportive, and you're open to conversing and receiving feedback. And certainly, great ethics, building the trust, and how you align your values with the companies that you work for. Make sure that you give truthful responses. Your resume should be accurate. So should be your responses. If you're asked a question where you don't have a lot of experience, just state that. Don't try to come up with something you think that they want to hear. Be truthful upfront. I don't have that type of experience. However, and then go into what experience you do have that can allow you to compensate for that lack until you do clear that gap. But focus on your strengths and why your background is, providing a unique value to the company. Highlight your skills and accomplishments that may be asked of you. If not, look for an opportunity where you can highlight ideas that you've thought of, how you sort of put the planning, brought stakeholders together, how you strategized and work in a team environment, and the accomplishments that you've done as you've executed on that plan. I mentioned this earlier. You should be very concise and focused in your responses. Again, it goes back to the mock interview. That's where you'll sort of refine your ability to be clear, concise, and focused. Time is limited, and so you want to just answer the specific question and not go off on the deep end. The one thing that can hurt you is talking negatively about previous employers and coworkers. And a lot of people would say, as this states here, the things you say about others also says a lot about you. So remain positive. Even if you've had issues with coworkers in the past, don't highlight the issue. What you should be doing is highlighting how you resolved it, how you moved on from it, how you were able to become a better person yourself and establish a better relationship with others. The last thing that you want to do when the interview is coming to an end is to ask for what the next steps are. Are there other interviews? Are there other people that are going to be making the decision? How quickly are they going to be making the decision? Will somebody be reaching out to you within a week, a couple of days? Get some expectations and understand what the next steps are from their perspective. This is also the time for you to ask them, is there anything that you may be interested in that maybe I didn't cover? That would also be a good time to sort of end the interview, making sure that you've covered all bases. So that ends the execution. And the last thing now is the follow-up. So you brought your notebook, you've written down everyone's name. Hopefully you've asked them for a business card. Some companies don't have business cards anymore for their interviewers or their managers. But get some information from them, email address or a phone number. The address to the building that they work at. So maybe in your last follow-up, it's going to be a personalized thank you for that interview. Customize it, right? It should be written specifically to the person that you met. Don't make it generic. Try to include some of the conversation that you had during the interviewing process. If you interviewed in the morning, right, this follow-up should go out that afternoon. If you interviewed in the afternoon, you should get it out first thing in the morning. Make certain that you execute on that follow-up. That's all I have. I hope that you found that valuable. If there's any questions, reach out to the Remand Project. They can reach out to me and connect us. I'll try to get this presentation into a PDF format that can be shared for those that would like to have it. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be blessed and stay safe.